or to get rid of someone for them. But he never asked me to look out for someone. This is the first time. And why you? He got arrested for having a younger girlfriend. He thought she was 19, but she was a minor. I thought about my business back in Chicago, and I figured I should call my accountant. And his answer was, "Okay, boss." Could it be Luigi, maybe? So I got to the visitors area to find out it was When I was walking through the other blocks, I noticed something depressing. It was the colors. All the walls, the clothes, everything was grey. The floors were grey, the inmates' clothes were grey. It felt like one lost the right to see colors once they get locked down in one of those blocks. But things around here were much more different. This block, where the richest inmates lived, was much more colorful and well taken care of. It was well decorated as well. In the cells in the area where the Gambini brothers lived, they had wallpaper on the walls in an interesting pastel color. And in the cell where I met them in the first time, there was a table with a vase and some flowers in it. There was newspaper on the table as well. I looked closer and it was that same day's edition. It meant that they got newspapers daily. In the cell where the Gambini brothers stayed, they had 2 beds with fluffy covers and pillows. Instead of the bedside tables, they had small fridges on the side of each bed. They also had 2 sinks with nice faucets and fresh towels. The Gambini brothers were around 40. The older brother, Franky, was 41. And the younger brother was called Tommy, and he was 38. Franky asked me that day, "You know, Don Pescara and I have done some business in the past. He always called me for collecting my or his money somewhere, or to get rid of someone for them. But he never asked me to look out for someone. This is the first time. And why you?" You know, in the Mafia in general, there are 2 ways to silence someone if they get arrested. Either they pay someone in prison to get rid of you, or they make sure your life in prison is as good as they can make it, and that you are going to be loyal to them no matter what. The Gambini brothers were wearing comfy pajamas, smoking cigars. They had it more comfortable in there than most people had it in their own homes back in the days. Then came out of nowhere Gigi. Gigi was their cook. He was the one cooking for them at home before they got arrested. He is their personal chef and he goes wherever they go, even in prison. Gigi told us it was time to eat. Tommy called 2 more guys. It was their young cousins. They were arrested for the same crime. The 2 Gambini brothers were around my age. We were in total 5 people, with Gigi being the 6th of the group. I learned a lot about the Italian cuisine later from Franky and Gigi. That day, the menu was as follows. The antipasti we had was pasta. It was spaghetti alla vongole. It was spaghetti with baby clams in their shells. It was made with white wine and garlic sauce. For the main course, we had ossobuco. It was some meat cooked with a red sauce. I did not eat much from the main course. I was already full from the pasta. I think the best pasta I ate in my whole life was in that prison, made by Gigi. After dinner, Franky opened a cigar box. I think they were Cohiba cigars, if I remember right. They costed around $100 to $150 each. I think those were some of the more affordable Cohiba cigars, as some other cigars could cost up to $350 a piece. He opened his fridge and brought a bottle of wine. Then, while serving himself some wine, he told me, "We will meet every day in this cell, for food time. We like to eat together. It's a tradition, you know. Your cell is there. I made sure you have everything you need." All the cells in this block were constantly open. I went to check my cell out. It was smaller than theirs, but it was very clean, and the walls had wallpaper on, in light beige, with flowers. On the other side of the block lived a musician. He was a famous guitarist. He was arrested and sentenced for 3 years. He got arrested for having a younger girlfriend. He thought she was 19, but she was a minor. And the FBI does not joke around about things like these. Next to him was the cell of a Republican senator, arrested for election fraud. So we were all in the same part, Mafia members, a musician and a senator. Yet no one talked to each other. In this part of the prison, each one of the inmates had their own supply of everything they needed. No one needs any other inmate for anything. The only communication between them is if they end up walking next to each other, somehow. They say hello, to show respect. In the Gambini brothers' cell, or let's call it their room, they had a shoebox with a stash of money. They showed me the box and told me if I ever needed money for anything inside prison, I could take from there. That those were prison money. They were made here and were supposed to be spent here. I thought about my business back in Chicago, and I figured I should call my accountant and talk to Luigi as well. The accountant should be worried if I did not show up to work the first day and tell him what he's supposed to do. I told Franky I needed to make a phone call. They told me then I could go call for a guard and he would show me where I can find the public phone. So I started walking towards the guard. Then I hear the Gambini brothers and the cousins laughing. It was a joke. They had a phone in their room, of course. I used the phone to call Luigi, but before the phone rang, I changed my mind. I should take care of my business on my own. I can't call Luigi every time I need help with something. So I called the accountant instead. He should be at the office in my casino. He picked up. I asked him if everything was alright and he said yes. Then I asked him if Nolan was there. He said yes, and I told him to give him the phone. I then told Nolan that we will have to postpone my takeover of the business. That he is going to have to manage everything for me while I'm away. I told him I would be back in around 2 months. And his answer was, "Okay, boss." It was the first time someone would call me boss. It felt great. After the call, it was time for the recreation. Our section of the prison does have its own recreation time, as the special guests of our section don't usually want to mix with the other inmates. But not the Gambini brothers. They had their business in prison with the other prisoners. In prison, in your first yard time, people respect you as much as they respect the people you are working with. I went out alone that day. The Gambini brothers went before me and found themselves a spot on a wooden bench. That's where they do their business. On my way to them, one Latino guy full of tattoos walked towards me. He asked me for a cigarette. I didn't answer him and kept walking. He then started walking even faster, and before he even reached me, two of his friends, who understood probably who I was with in that prison, they grabbed him, preventing him from reaching me and probably saving him from the Gambini brothers and their soldiers. Before I even reached the bench to sit with the Gambini brothers, a prison guard came up to me and asked me to follow him. He said I had a visitor. I met the chief guard of the whole prison. He asked me if I was Johnny Borsa, and then told me that visits were not permitted that day, but they will make an exception for me. But who can it be? I had no family to visit me. Could it be Luigi, maybe? So I go to the visitors area to find out it was Lucia. I was both happy and worried that someone would see us. What would happen if someone saw us and told her dad? It's even worse here. I can't run away. So we spent 30 minutes talking, and she told me a bit about how she was disappointed at how I left the room without saying a thing and not going back. I told her I thought her father figured out what happened between us. She told me she liked the time we spent together and that it meant a lot to her. Those 30 minutes went extremely fast, and I had to get back inside. It was nice to get a visitor, actually. Later that night, Gigi had made us some fancy fish for dinner. We ate very well, and when we were done, the older of the two Gambini cousins waited until it was only him and I in the cell, and he told me, Oh, who was the girl I saw you with earlier? She looks really pretty. And I don't think we have such beautiful girls in Pittsburgh. I think I recognize her from somewhere.